So I thought, that's a great excuse to give that a go.
Yeah,
So
reason number 45 for gas, yeah.
exactly, and who needs a reason, as they say, for gas?
Yeah.
I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
Hello, and you're very welcome to episode 131 of the Irish Photography Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host this evening, and I'm joined by a very good friend of mine all the way down in Kerry. Terry MacSweeney, welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. How are you getting on, buddy?
Good, Darren, and thanks, Mill, for asking me to come on. I'm really
Thanks for coming
excited
on.
to have a chat. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, you know. I mean, like you and I, we know each other for a long time. Anyway, we'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, I haven't seen you in ages because of the whole lockdown. And, you know, we've chatted now and then online and such like that. And I said, you know what, Terry, you've done something very interesting and I wanted to get you on to have a talk about that. But moreover, I kind of wanted to get you on to talk to you anyway as well. So yeah, look, I'm delighted that you came on. Thanks very, very much for coming on. And I suppose just before we get into anything else, in case anybody is wondering, who's this fella? Who's Terry MacSweeney? Who is Terry MacSweeney? Tell us a bit more about you, Nate, to start off with.
I'm a amateur photographer based down in Kerry, originally hailing from Cork City. I was born and bred in Douglas, so I was born and bred in Douglas,
Very
and
good.
I managed to infiltrate the border around 92. I fell in love with a Kerry woman, and the rest is history. So I've been down here for a long time.
Very good.
And raised a family here, so delighted to be living in such a beautiful place.
Oh, yeah.
So, naturally drawn to photography, been surrounded in such by beautiful things.
As you do. And tell me, you mentioned there about being drawn to photography. When did you get started in photography? Were you started from a young boy? Did it come as a young adult? Did it come since you went to Kerry and saw the beauty around you? How did you get started in photography?
Dad was always into photography. He had old film cameras. I'm the youngest of six, so I remember my dad always having beautiful set of cameras, like the old medium format cameras, as well as the DSLRs. My poor mum used to have to carry all the gear for him all the time.
Sure.
So she was, yeah, exactly. So I always had a small compact camera, film camera back in the 90s. So anytime we'd go out for a walk or with my friends and stuff like that, I'd always have a camera. And I was the guy who used to take, photographs, but I never really got seriously into it until I'd say about 2009.
Okay.
When I did an evening class to learn a bit more about composition, and it was run by a guy called Michael Herman, who's a German photographer based down in Valencia.
Okay.
And he suggested to join a camera club, and that's where it really kicked off for me.
Interesting.
But it's kind of interesting that I dusted off the slide projector that I have at home here last weekend with the kids.
Okay.
We kind of were looking at slides that I took back in the 90s, and they couldn't get over, mum and dad in, as 20-something-year-olds, in their big woolen jumpers and stuff. So it was great to actually, look at old photographs like that and have that event of, gathering around to look at photographs, so it's lovely to have those old shots. So
it's very interesting, you mentioned it there, that the evolution of photography, right? So I remember as a kid, my father dragging out the slide projector and we'd be looking at the slides. I remember finding the slides and looking them up to the light and seeing what was like, what's this and what's that? And you could never make it out because it was a negative as such. So you'd only look at it when you put it into the projector. And all of a sudden we used to have this, I don't know how often, it felt like very, very often, but obviously it wasn't. But it felt like we'd all be rushed around this table or rushed around this projector to sit through, and you heard as it's changing out the slides to look at the images. And it was a big thing for him. But from my point of view, I was like, all right, come on, hurry on. And then all of a sudden you'd see when you go, oh, who's that? That's you. No, that's not me. That's not me. But it's mad to think of it now because you can look at your photographs. It's so simple. It's on your phone. Where it was an event before.
Exactly, yeah. And also, say, the anticipation of waiting for the developed film to come back because like I had a few self-timer photographs, and in those days, I think you had a 10-second timer that you'd press a button, you'd set the camera up on a rock,
Mm-hmm.
then you'd run into the frame. Hopefully, you didn't brain yourself in some sort of hole along the way, and then hopefully the shot came out. So there's lots of very dodgy horizons
Oh yeah.
in the shots, back then. But no, it's lovely to have them. Like,
Oh, for sure, for sure. And tell me, like, have you tried your hand at many different types of photography over the years?
well, it's mainly landscape, but I have astrophotography and macro photography, and maybe some street photography. Like I recently got a shoot move that it came up on Instagram. This thing for tracking the stars,
Okay.
a fairly cheap thing, to do that. So I'm always interested in trying out new things,
Mm-hmm.
and also like recently at Christmas time, because of not being able to get out at all for photography, I got myself a flash and a softbox, like
Very
a
good.
Godox flash and softbox. So I want to learn about off-camera flash. So my eldest daughter, Neve, needed some headshots for college.
Okay.
So I thought that's a great excuse to give that a
Yeah.
go.
Reason number 45 for gas. Yeah.
Exactly. And who needs a reason, as they say, for gas?
Yeah.
It's always that's one of the things I do like about photography is, there's always something extra that you can learn about and just, get yourself out of your comfort zone. Because there's always a bit, apprehensive about learning about flash,
Mm-hmm.
especially off-camera flash.
Mm-hmm.
So I've have a Udemy course that I bought ages ago on flash photography, and I think I might have looked at the first two slides or whatever in it. So I'm kind of going through that now at the moment.
Very good.
So it's something to keep that interest going when we can't do a whole lot outside of the home with photography.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, like, from my own point of view, I always class myself and pigeonhole myself that I'm a landscape photographer. I'm a one-trick pony, right? Anytime that the kids want to get anything done, I get out my phone because it's just as easy. I know I'm not going to be able to miss the shot.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be taken. I know I'm not going to have blur or whatever because, I mean, my kids are quite young, so trying to get them to stand still for a moment enough for me to go get the camera, get the right lens, then go get a flash, then get the settings, the moment is gone. So I just pick out the phone and I'm going, bang. But I have gotten better at it over the years, knowing that what I need to do and how I need to do it quickly. But it was always something that I was a small bit, I suppose, in a way, kind of scared of. I was intimidated by it because I was like, I don't want to miss this moment. But then with the flash point of view, that's a whole different world as well when you start playing around with
Yeah.
the flash. And at the start of lockdown, I started to play around with stuff. I was like, okay, I have to try and be creative here and such like that. And I started to play around with different lights and started playing around with the flash. And it is really, really fun. And I think it's quite addictive as well once you start nailing things because, like, I presume you've kind of done it around, and we'll talk about in the club in a moment, but in the club scene, I imagine you've tried your hand at a number of different types of photography. And one thing that, I always fascinates me is the water droplet photography. And if you can get that right, it's incredible. And it's got to do with the flash, but it's also got to do with the shutter speed. It's also got to do with getting the focus. It's also about the equipment that you're using. So there's a whole plethora of things that you need to be able to have to do that side of photography. But once you get into it, it can be quite addictive.
Yeah, like talking about that, in the club, we often, when we talk about it maybe later on, but we have competitions and some of them are themed. And one of the things we're thinking about doing now is taking behind the scenes shots of the shot that you put into the competition, because there's lots of that fun stuff that people don't, maybe never hear about, the behind the scenes of, say, taking a water droplet shot, and, the effort people go to try and get a shot for a competition. There's great fun in doing that, and you learn an awful lot along the way. And, if it doesn't work out, it's not such a big deal. You've enjoyed the experience of trying to get that shot.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, like you said, to behind the scenes, because that is, again, something that people wouldn't even consider, the amount that goes into getting a shot like that, So yeah, I like that idea. Actually, that's something I think could be interesting. And I think the next thing I want to touch on is that, like I alluded to at the very beginning, you and I have been friends for a number of years. I think I first met you not long after I set up MLP, and then I did the first meetup down in Killarney, and then Terry was like, "Who's this guy?" And I goes, "Geez, the fella full of enthusiasm. He's jumping around the place, taking all these shots." And I started to see your photographs, and I was like, "Wow, this guy's talented." Now we travelled. We went across the water. We went over to Bolton. We went to see Thomas Heaton, and then we went off
yeah.
close to Liverpool. Then we went off up to the Lake District, and it was a phenomenal trip. And I mean, it's still memories that I still have to this day in regards to the trip that we would have had. So, like, we've touched on the different styles of photography there, but am I right in saying that your heart lies in landscape photography? And if so, why?
Yeah, that would be true. Yeah, like I'm always drawn to that landscape photography. Like I remember that trip very well. Like I remember, and this is one of the things why I really like landscape photography is, we didn't really know where we were going when we went on that trip, and it was, we were kind of like a bit mad. So, let's go over to hear Thomas Heaton, have a lecture,
Yeah.
and try and put in a bit of photography at the same time. But I remember we said, let's go over to Crosby Beach to see, the installation of those statues on
Another
the beach.
place, yeah, by Anthony Gormley.
Another place, Anthony Gormley, exactly. And so we had no idea what to expect. And we arrived at the beach in the dark, it was before the sun rose. And then I remember we were walking along in the dark and then getting freaked out by all these shadows emerging
Whoa,
out of the
Jesus
darkness.
Christ, what's that thing? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I remember we dressed one up with an MLP hat
We
and a
did.
jacket,
And
and
the
we took a
jacket,
photograph of it. But that's the kind of thing that I really enjoy about landscape photography, is where you go to some place that you're not that familiar with. And, you might have planned it with regard to, the way the light is shining and the if it's near the sea, the tidal conditions, but you're not really sure whether you'll get a shot or not. So there's an excitement there about discovering something new and also challenging, because you don't know what sort of composition you're going to get, if you're going to get any. And for me, it doesn't really matter if you don't get anything. It's just finding a new place and exploring places is what really draws me to landscape photography. And so, like, one of the things I really like is going out into the hills, hiking, and bringing my gear with me, and just being that much closer to nature. And if I get a shot, I get a shot, but if I don't, it's still a nice day out in the hills.
And a couple of things that come to mind from that is, you do a lot of wild camping. Well, you did, obviously,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's something
Yeah.
which is phenomenal, not only to be able to do, but you're out there on your own in the middle of the night. You wake up in the morning, you've gotten some beautiful conditions, you've gotten some incredible photography or photographs. But that's something I think that makes a lot of people quite unique, because a lot of people wouldn't do that. A lot of people are kind of more comfort, they're side of the road photographer, but you're not. You'll go off and you'll just go exploring, and it's like
Yeah.
the journey there is equally as important as getting there. And as you say, even if you didn't get
Yeah.
a shot, you were out and you were in the middle of nowhere on your own. I think from that point of view, I think that's something which is food and fuel for you. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And like more recently, and during lockdown, I bought a couple of guidebooks. There's some really good guidebooks by Collins Press on, the different peninsulas, the Beara Peninsula, the Evora Peninsula, and the Dingle Peninsula, that have loads and loads of walking routes. So I'm really looking forward to exploring them a bit more, because like when I came down to Kerry first, one of the first things I did was join the local camera club, local hill walking club. And that was kind of to meet people, but also to kind of get my bearings around the place. And through that, I kind of learned how to read a map and navigate and stuff like that. So that means no matter where you go, you should be able to get up in the hills if you have a map. And nowadays you have View Ranger, which is online maps, which makes it a bit easier to have it more accessible. But it's really good fun.
Yeah, and again, something else comes to mind when we had that meetup in Killarney, and myself, John Myler, Kevin Foley, Mike Green, we went off over to the Gap of Dunlow, and Dave was there as well to take the photographs of the Milky Way. But you had said, I have another idea, and you went off over to Bray Head to get the Milky Way over the Skelligs, and I was thinking, oh, go to Bray Head, is he off his game, like, but you weren't, because you knew what you were doing. And I think that kind of puts you and allows you to put yourself in a position to be able to get those photographs without even having to think about it. For me, if I had to do that, I go, okay, when am I going to do that? 3 months? Okay, I got to start training. You know what I mean? So you're just able to go and then know how to get there, but more importantly, how to get back down safe, because it was in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose something else then before I move on to the next thing was that we talked about the trip when we went to the UK. I went back there in March of last year, not last year, the year before, 2019.
Mm.
Myself and Dermot went over for the photography show, and I said to Dermot, "Come on, we're going back to the Lake District." He goes, "I have no interest in going to the Lake District. I don't want it. I want to go." I said, "Trust me, you're going to like it." And I knew we were going because you and I had gone exploring there together. And it was funny because he
Mm.
mentioned a number of times on the podcast is that we'd go to Buttermere and he wanted flat water for reflections, and he was like, "No, this is crap. This all the water is moving." I said, "Relax, relax. When the sun will set, don't worry, it'll all go calm." And he's like, it won't." And I went one step further, and I went, "Trust me, just before the sun sets, see all those sheep over there? They're all going to come past us, and they're all going to go into the other field." And I had no idea, but it happened
Mm-hmm.
when you and I were there at the time, and I went, "There's a chance it could
Oh,
happen
yes, yeah, I
again,"
remember.
And he couldn't get over it. He was like, "Jesus Christ, is this guy a psychic or what? Like, he's after telling me that the water's going to go
Yeah.
flat," and it went flat. And then he says, "Those sheep over there are going to move over to the other field," and they moved over there as well. So, like with the Lake District, like, how did you enjoy that trip from that photography point of
I
view?
did. Yeah, absolutely. Um, the Like there's some iconic shots, all right, with the the gate in that.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I think it's Grasmere. I can't
Buttermere.
remember the name of the Lake Buttermere.
Yeah.
Yeah, like those classic shots. It's lovely to see
Oh,
them,
and
but
Derwent Water.
just
Derwent Water is where the sunken gate is.
okay, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember like compared to Ireland, where it's not as crowded, like some of those photography photo shot places are very crowded over in the
Hmm.
UK. Like I remember when we went to get that lonely tree, and there's guys walking past us that wouldn't even say
Yeah,
how you how's it
I
going or
know.
whatever, and they wouldn't budge. Like, and that wouldn't be my cup of tea at all. And same with yourself.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I remember we had a good old chat, but I do remember when we were there on one of those lakes, and I was packing up my gear, and you said to me, "Terry, the light's going to change. The light's going to change," and it did. So you were psychic back then as well.
You're right. Actually, I remember that because you were like you were cold. I think it was. We were out for all the day long,
Yeah,
and I was like, "No, Terry, trust me, it'll change. It'll change." And bang, did it change? So we ended up getting beautiful rainbows
yeah,
and everything on that. That was a really really great
yeah.
trip.
That
Yeah,
was
it was
classic.
good.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, a lot of highlights came from that trip. So much so that I had to
Yeah,
go back
and
again.
yeah, I can remember as well. Driving the car, like I remember you were giving out to me for driving like a farm in the car. We had a hire car over there, and going along I remember we were going through Bolton, and we had the A666,
Yes.
and I said I have to put on Iron
Yeah.
Maiden's Number of the
Number
Beast,
of the
and we
beast.
cranked it up. So, and that's the really nice thing about photography. Meeting, having friendships like what we
Yeah.
have, and meeting other people, and just having the crack when you're out and about taking shots. Like,
It's really important.
and it's about the journey as well as the photos that you may or may not take. Like,
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose the next thing then moving on to, because we've kind of alluded to there a moment ago, is, from the club point of view. So you're a very, very
sure,
active member of Killarney Camera Club. So number one, I suppose,
yeah,
tell us a bit more about the club anyway, first and foremost.
sure, yeah. It was founded in around 2001. Like I've been there since 2009, following that evening class that I did.
Hmm.
And we've got about 30 members this year. So it's usually around 30 to 40 members that we have. And we organize, guest speakers. So we'd have, either people from other clubs come and visit and talk about the type of photography they do. We'd have workshops on, macro photography, water droplet photography, say, portrait stuff. Um, and we often have professional photographers come in and give talks, which is, really, really inspiring.
Hmm.
Like, because I still really remember the first um, photographer that came in when I had just joined, a guy called David Hogan. He's a professional photographer from Tralee,
Okay.
and he had talked about landscape photography and about pre-visualizing the photograph and planning it. And I had no appreciation of, what taking a landscape photograph was before that. Like I just thought you just turned up and took a shot.
Hmm.
So that really inspired me to, okay, there's a lot more to this that I can learn, and that really kind of started me on the journey.
Hmm.
But it's so we kind of meet every 2 weeks in Killarney, the Heights Hotel in Killarney, and we have competitions every month, which is kind of a fun side of the club. It's not it's serious enough, but it's not too serious that it takes over, the
The green-eyed monster kind
the
of thing,
fun of
like
the
yeah,
club.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, because that can easily
Hmm.
happen. Like, so, and we have different themes, and we try and set up the themes to make it challenging, so you don't fall into a groove of just doing the same old type of photography all the time.
Hmm.
So we try and push our standards up, and then during the competitions, then we take turns. The more experienced members of the club will take turns giving feedback.
Okay.
So it's a very kind of constructive feedback cycle to help everybody in the club,
Improve.
improve their photography skills. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of like we've been lucky enough that there's a few of us in the club that have some IT expertise that we've been able to transition to the more online
Hmm.
variation of kind of running a club, and we might get into that in a bit more detail. But the club is still very active. We still meet every 2 weeks. We still run our competitions, but everything is online.
Hmm.
But we have had guest speakers over the last couple of months,
Very
so
good.
things are still going well. And we'd also organise, you know, um, days away. So because there's a lot of people who, most of the club, most of the people would be from Kerry, and they would have local
Hmm.
spots that they would know about. So they would organise, a meetup, and we'd kind of go exploring in their backyard, and they'd show us some of the spots there. So that's really nice. But it's a lovely way of meeting new people
Oh, 100%.
that have a common
Yeah.
interest. Yeah,
Before
yeah.
before I go into that, let me ask you a question. What is it with Kerry men and Kerry people that they won't leave Kerry to go take photos? They just won't go anywhere other than Kerry. What is
I
it?
know, I know. I'd say they're spoiled rotten and lazy, maybe.
So why would I want to travel? I have it
Uh,
all on my doorstep.
I know, I know. Scat. Um,
Well, the thing for me, Ryan, you mentioned there
it's true.
about people, right? Like
Yeah.
again with MLP, I had the honor of meeting many, many people from the club through Munster landscape photographers, and it always blew me away the quality in such a small area. I mean, it's Killarney Camera Club. Now, Killarney has beautiful things everywhere you look. I mean, 360 degrees from Killarney, you've got a photo to take. And within those 360 degrees, you've got macro degrees where you'll get a hidden gem you wouldn't even know about. And from that point of view, you mentioned about, learning from others and such like that and showing areas that you wouldn't even know exist. I can still nearly say that there's people that are living in Killarney all their lives, have a camera in their hand a lot of their lives, but they're still finding areas that they never knew existed because there's such a beautiful area. So you're right,
Mm,
spoiled for choice, but within the whole Killarney ecosystem, you've everything. I mean, you've got
mm,
lakes, you've got mountains, you've got waterfalls, you've got old woods, and I remember one, well, actually, not, I don't think it was the MLP trip. It was another time I was down in Kerry, in Killarney, and you sent me a picture and went, "Look what I found! Look what I found!" And it was over in the Black Valley, and it was a beautiful waterfall. And I still to this day, I was like, "Geez, I must go back and find that. I must go back." I thought I found it one day, but it wasn't that. So, like, do you still find, even after all these years now, that you're still finding areas that you never even knew existed, and you kind of went, "Geez, how did I miss that?"
yeah. Like especially on the Dingle, I wouldn't know the Dingle Peninsula very well, but there's some
My
fantastic
favorite.
valleys and lakes in there, and like they're a bit off the beaten track, all right. But I'm looking forward to bringing my camera
Oh,
up and checking it out. Like,
don't get me
but
started.
like
Oh,
it's just,
I miss it so much. Go
I
on, yeah.
know, I know. I think it's been very tough. Like, and they look so different in different seasons, I suppose, because like you have a lot of wood, deciduous trees in Killarney, and the color change in autumn is
Hmm.
amazing, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, look, I mean, what a place to be stuck for 5 kilometre of a range if you're in the middle of Killarney. I mean, I can't think of any
yeah,
nicer place to be other than the Dingle Peninsula, to be honest with you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm kicking myself like because a friend of mine, Bernard, he had the best idea ever. Is he saw that this whole lockdown was coming, so he moved everything up sticks down to Dingle during December, and he's still down in Dingle, and that now becomes his
oh,
5K. And I'm just kicking myself that I didn't do that because I can work from home. All I need is an internet connection. So I could have done that. And
yeah,
but to have such beauty in such a small area. Killarney National Park, to me, is probably one of the best things that we have in this country. And there's
Yeah.
so much. And I remember another trip I was down there, and Peter O'Toole. And I often said to myself, geez, I'd love to get an afternoon with Peter O'Toole. Geez, I wonder where the places he'd bring me. It might have been hidden gems he'd know about. And the old phrase they say, be careful what you wish for, right? Because I was up by Derek Connolly, myself, John Myler, Kevin Foley, and Dave were there. And off rocks up Peter, and he had Oscar with him at the time. And he says, oh, geez, lads, how are you getting on? I was like, well, geez, Peter, how are you getting on? He says, I'm just going down here checking my boat. I went, all right, okay. He goes, do you want to come with me? And I went, yeah. So off we went down, thinking we were only going to go for a short period of time, but we ended up going down, seeing his boat, and then he went, come on, I'll take you down here to a place. He says, you normally can't get down here because it's always normally flooded. So he brought us over across a kind of a prairie area. And it was incredible because he was walking along, and now at the time he had missing cartilage in his knees, right? So, but he was walking down, walking down there like he was walking down Patrick Street, just scooting across it. And I was like, Jesus, okay, I'm falling into this. And he's like, no, don't step there. No, don't step here. Yeah, oh, step on that rock, not this rock. Because he knew the whole area like the back of his hand. That myself and John Myler were together with this. But in the meantime, the other two guys were behind, and they hadn't got this instruction. And I'll never forget.
And you let them pick and sink.
Yeah, I remember. I'll never forget this. And I look behind, like, come on, lads. And they're like, where are you? Like, this way, walk this way. Okay. And all of a sudden they go, which way? Boom. And they're gone straight down into the swamp, But the amount of areas that he knew and the amount of areas that I wanted to go to. But my God, I was wrecked by the time I got back from it. But he brought us into some beautiful areas. And that's, again, in the whole park. I mean, the park itself is just incredible. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful area,
Yeah, and Peter has an amazing exhibition of photographs in Killarney House. I'm pretty sure they're still there because I remember I went to the opening.
Oh, wow.
Just shortly after he retired, and he has a whole collection of really, really big prints of his photographs on display there. So next time you're Killarney, really well worth popping in, when things open up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I suppose go back to the club there for a moment, right? Because you mentioned a second ago about the people that you would meet and, then how they'd help each other out. How has the club influenced your photography? Has it helped your photography over the years?
Absolutely, yeah. Like as well as giving me an incentive to keep going out taking photographs, with the competitions, which is, just keep, because what I try with the competitions is not use photographs from an archive, from years ago. I try and take recent photographs for the competition. So that'll be one thing, will keep you getting out there taking photographs. But it's when new people join, kind of teaching other people, kind of sharing your passion for photography, I think, is the main thing that has really helped me. And it's great to see people who maybe might have been a bit intimidated when they joined the club initially, and seeing them progress and becoming a lot more confident with their photography, and even suggesting bring people out on workshops, or showing them around their own local area.
Yeah, I mean,
like recently we gave a talk to Cork Camera Club, that myself, Nikki and Seamus, two other people in the club. So it's lovely just making those connections with people that you've never met before as well,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's really good.
Look, I mean, from every aspect of it, you can learn from each other. And I think, I've mentioned many, many times on the podcast over the years, like, you can go off and you can get a book, or you can go off and online you can watch a video. But going out and having somebody next to you to even ask the question, what settings are you on here for this one? Because it gives you the initial steer. And then all of a sudden you lock that in, because you might read something in a book and going, okay, yeah, when you go take a landscape photography, okay, it's F11 ISO 100, right? But what's my shutter speed supposed to be? The shutter speed is going to vary depending on the light. So, or what you want to capture. And if you don't have that and don't understand that, or taking waterfalls as another example, you could go off and do that and all of a sudden get a very fast shutter speed. And you're going, okay, I got my waterfall photograph. Well, hang on a second. Have you considered this? Oh, geez, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Because the book didn't tell me to think of that. So I think from learning from others and being able to get a body of work which is improving every step of the way, there's a huge amount to be said for the value that a club can bring for not only your photography, but also I'm sure there's people that have joined that started green behind the ears, but you can see something in them and they pick it up so quick and all of a sudden they're accelerating on. You're like, wow, look at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's why, that critique feedback that we have in the competitions is so important, because everybody, it learns from that, and it's done in a constructive way. So it's not like, belittling anybody or trying to, pick holes in their photography. It's all about, this is really strong image, but, consider, as you're saying, have you considered this? If you did this, it would even be stronger potentially, because a lot of it is a matter of opinion as
Mm-hmm.
well,
Mm-hmm.
so, and, you know, by doing that inside the club, like it's the people inside the club critiquing each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps bond the club, as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. So look, what we're going to do, Terry, is we're going to take a very quick break, right? And when we come back, I want to talk a bit more about the exhibitions of work that you do, because I think
sure.
there's a very interesting topic to discuss there. So we'll be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the podcast, why not jump over to iTunes or Spotify and listen to the back catalogue that we have with some great episodes where we talk about photography, gear, and some excellent guests along the way. Thanks very much for listening and for watching. We'll see you on the next one. You're very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Terry, like I said there before the break, I kind of want to get into something here, which is a very interesting topic for me. And to kind of tee it up, really, is you alluded to it earlier on, and you also mentioned in regards to Peter O'Toole's work, right? So, there's been very, very successful exhibitions of images for members, and I think it's in the library in Killarney. I mean, I went to
That's right.
Killarney on one occasion, and I made it purpose to go there because it was phenomenal work. So, like, tell me, how would you have organised that in the past? What goes into organising that exhibition in the library in Killarney?
Like every year we try and do an exhibition, and it's really to encourage people to print their photographs is one thing, and also for them, for people to see your photograph hanging in a public space is a really good motivator, for to hear that feedback from other people, but also just to say, wow, that's my work hanging there, and it doesn't look too bad. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that, like, the way we organize that is, we get members of the club to pick out two of their photographs,
Okay.
and then we send them off to get them printed. Like, and Graham Daly actually has printed a lot of our
Very good.
photos for our exhibitions. A photographer from Cork, a good
Yeah.
friend, and then we have a whole set of frames, and we just mount them in the frames then, and we hang them in the gallery, and we'd usually in the library in Killarney, because that's a nice public
Mm-hmm.
space. They've got a special room there that has really good lighting, and then we'd invite either a local photographer or member of the council, or we had Wishy Fogarty, from, unfortunately he passed away recently,
Okay.
from Kerry
Yeah.
Radio, to open up the exhibition. So then we'd have an open evening where we'd have the official opening. We'd have some nibbles and some fizzy water. I don't know if the budget went for prosecco or whatever, but it was just so nice to have a group of friends and members of the public as well in that space,
Mm-hmm.
seeing the photographs, and you'd have the photographers from the local papers then covering the event. So it was really good exposure for the club,
Mm-hmm.
but could really sense in the members of the club that actually put in photographs, because we really encourage them to submit photographs for the exhibition.
Okay.
You could really sense the enjoyment and the sense of, wow, that's my work
Mm-hmm.
hanging on the wall there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a great motivator. So, and then after the exhibition's finished, the club sell the photographs at, just to cover the costs if people want to
Very good.
have their own prints. So it's a nice way of getting a nice big high quality print
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I say, I went and made a beeline there on a couple of occasions to go in and look at it, because for two things, to be honest with you. Number one, just to be able to see the people that I knew through MLP and their photographs being up there, but also
Sure.
to get ideas, because you'd also see these areas that you may not necessarily see, because people may hold a photograph for the exhibition that wouldn't go online. You go,
Yeah.
Jesus, where's that? Jeez, look at that place,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going down to take photos, so I'd go in there first, and I go, okay, maybe I'm going over to Torque or whatever it might have been. I go, okay, I didn't see that composition before, and then I know what it is. So it gives me a small bit of inspiration then to even go I was going to Torque, but no, sod that. I'm going to go to Derek Cunningham now because I've seen the cascades that are there. I mean, I never even knew of the cascades. I went to the Derek Cunningham Falls on 3 or 4 occasions, but I never knew to go
Yeah.
turn left and go to the giant
Turn left.
cascades that are on the left-hand side. I mean, I remember when I
Yeah.
recorded the episode with you of In the Landscape Photographer Profile, that's where we did it.
Yeah.
And not only was
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
blown away by how good you were when we recorded it, but I was blown away by how have I missed this spot so often? And like that's what I think,
Yeah.
because like when you get such good quality photographers and such a breadth of photography in one area from a concentration around an area, it can't help but inspire you. And it can't help but inspire the public either to see the beauty that they may not even see themselves, you know. So well done for
Yeah.
putting them together. I mean, you know, I really, really enjoyed visiting. And of course I couldn't visit, you know, from last year. And now coming into this year, I want to talk about what you've done in COVID times, because you didn't say, I don't want to have an exhibition. You said, I want to have an exhibition, but you said, I'm going to make it virtual. So yeah,
Yeah.
tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So yeah, that came up at one of our meetings before Christmas, and the idea was floating. Well, how do we do an exhibition this year? And Seamus and the club said, "Oh, how about we do a virtual exhibition?" And I was thinking to myself, sure, isn't that just a slideshow on Flickr or something like that? You know what I mean? And our chairperson is Nikki Foley, and she asked me, Terry, would you help set up a virtual exhibition? And my normal reaction is, yeah, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what was involved, but over Christmas then I did a bit of Googling of virtual exhibitions, and came across this web service called Kunz Matrix.
Okay.
It's a German company, and they provide virtual exhibition spaces for artists. So it's not just photography, but it could be painters, sculptures, ceramics, lots of different things. And you can pick a couple of different room layouts, and then upload images of your whatever artistic pieces they are. In our case, it was photographs. So you'd upload the photographs, enter some details about the photographs, and then go around virtually hanging them on the walls. So you kind of try and lay them out. So it's like kind of going through a holodeck with just walking around, like there's no zombies jumping out getting you. So it's like a game, except you're just looking at photographs. So it's a very passive game. But it was really good fun setting it up, and we didn't say anything to the rest of the club.
Okay.
So myself and Nikki were organizing it. So what we usually one of the challenges of doing an exhibition is getting people to send in the photographs on time and in the right size and stuff like that. So what we did to reduce the workload was we picked photographs from the last 2 years of competitions, because we have a good set of high quality photographs, and that would help everybody who's active in the club be represented in the virtual gallery. So we put all that together, and with this Kunz Matrix website, you pay €25 a month to have a virtual exhibition space, and you can have up to 250 photographs as in that. So we had that set up, and then on one of our nights we did our virtual launch as a club evening, and we unveiled it, and everybody was blown away by wow, this is a real a real kind of exhibition, although it's online. So you have the same feel. You can walk around and see the photographs, and you can do an automatic tour and stuff like that. So it was really good fun.
It looks great, and it's actually what prompted me to say, you know what, I get Terry on to talk about this, because I imagine there's a lot of other clubs that are out there very similar to that, are trying to find ways to be able to share their images amongst the club. But the way you did it there, I think, is fantastic, because it's like as if it was a big reveal, a big surprise to everybody. And not only did they see their photographs, but as you say, you can walk through this, you can have a virtual exhibition. But you mentioned something a second ago about where you have it in the library, is that it had some nice light. You're now in a virtual space which has perfect light. So,
exactly.
with that in mind, you're always going to have nice light on the images, and then as you're picking them through. So, like, what could people expect when they go look at this virtual exhibition? What is the different types of photographs that you picked?
We tried to show the different range of subject matter for the clubs. So there's a lot of landscape ones, right? Because
Hmm.
by the nature of the club and where we are, there's a lot of landscape, but there's also, still life, some macro shots. There's some abstract shots, and there's a mixture of color and black and white.
Okay, very good.
And there's not that many portrait ones. Like that's something we probably need to grow a bit more in the club. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? But
Hmm.
there's plenty of variety, and we this kind of store because we have a Facebook page, and the local papers learned about it through the Facebook page, I think. So they got on to us to do articles. So we had some really good coverage in the
Brilliant,
Kerryman and the Kerry's Eye, which are local papers.
brilliant.
So and then like since we have I kind of renewed it for this month as well. So I put in another exhibition of a thing called triptych photographs.
Okay.
So triptych is three images
Yes.
on kind of three panels. You might see them in old churches and stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And one of the fun things we did a couple of years ago in the club as a themed competition, we call it a triptych competition,
Okay.
which is something we had never done before. So people had to enter three photographs that had a common theme, connecting them together. People really, really enjoyed the kind of challenge of putting together a triptych. So since we had loads of space, I think like in the original exhibition, we have 52 photographs. So,
Okay.
we had loads more space for our subscription. So I decided to put together the triptych entries for the last, I think we did it twice.
Brilliant.
So I created a separate exhibition. So there's plenty. If people want to
Variety.
see where it is, that they can go on killarneycameraclub.ie is our website. So that there's a blog post there on the link that has the link to the
Brilliant.
exhibition.
Brilliant. I'll put a link of that into the show notes anyway as well when I
Ah,
put it
cool,
up onto
good
the
stuff.
Facebook page.
Yeah,
And I suppose
yeah.
you mentioned here about the idea, the concept, how it looked, how everything came together. So, from your point of view, what was the biggest challenge in doing that? Because, you've organized ones that were in real life in the past. You are IT literate, let's just say. You're the IT
Yeah.
person that understands these things. I know a lot of people would look at that and it'd be like as if they were talking gobbledygook. They wouldn't even figure out how is this possible. But from your point of view, what was the biggest challenge then in putting it together?
Well, like the most piece of work really was having to enter all the details for all the photographs that were being loaded up because the process of uploading the photographs was a bit clunky. Like
Okay.
you had to kind of manually key in all the details at the photographer's name, the title of the photograph, and if there was any background information on the shot, we had to type that in manually. But other than that, it was very, very user friendly, and you didn't need to have that much IT, real IT skills just to be comfortable, using a computer. So, I definitely recommend it because, like when I was there, I was thinking, gosh, I wonder, are there any other camera clubs using this space? So I just did a search for camera club, and I found one other club in Ireland that was using it.
Okay.
I think it was Boyne Club up in the north, but no other ones.
Okay.
So, I definitely recommend, for something different,
Hmm.
to try it out. And it's only €25 for a month, and then you can, unsubscribe if you don't want to continue it, and start it up again because like there's a limit to how many photographs you can have up. But it's very good value, like.
It's very good value. And the beauty of that as well is that, you had it in the library in Killarney, but you are kind of pigeonholing that to a certain extent into the library in Killarney, whereas online is online. So
Yeah.
yeah, if somebody takes that and shares that with somebody who's in Australia or somebody in America, they would never have got the opportunity to go to Killarney, to go into the library at the period of time when it was running. So, I think it's a very, very good platform to give it something which
Hmm.
can go global, let's just say. And I think, like
Yeah.
you mentioned there, you extended it. How long is it? Is it running for the month of February? Is it going
It's
to go on to
it,
March?
it's to the first week of March at the moment, and
Very
we'll
good,
see if we want to extend it again.
very good, very good. And I suppose final question then on that one, then Terry is like will you go back to do the virtual one again? Like, hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, and
I
all that
know,
kind of stuff. In
I know.
2022, we find a small bit of normality, right? But if you are back to normal, will you also run the virtual one concurrently? Do you think?
We might, because as you say, it's an interesting thing about extending the reach of the club. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, I think that would be a good thing to do, because
Mm.
like as I was saying earlier, the the beauty of having an actual physical exhibition is, that interaction, and it's more tactile, seeing your
Mm-hmm.
photographs printed. But you know, there's a different impact with the virtual one, and especially on the reach to an audience that mightn't make it down to Kerry. Because like
Mm.
with the exhibition in the library, it's only for a very short period of time because there's a lot of other timetables for that particular exhibition space.
Yeah, for sure.
So
And I
yeah,
suppose
yeah,
the other thing that comes to mind from that then as well is to try and monetize it, because if you've got an opportunity to sell prints from the digital images that are on the virtual
yeah,
exhibition, like, Ireland, okay, the old phrase is Ireland has a tiny population in Ireland, but has a huge population around the world. I mean, everybody has some sort of a link to Ireland, let's just say,
hmm
particularly in the
hmm
US. And
yeah,
now, when you get so many people from the US that can't or couldn't travel to Ireland, and particularly to Kerry, I think it could be something there where you could have an opportunity to get that message far afield. But more importantly, if you like a photograph in the exhibition, then contact, because you might be able to get a print of it. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely, yeah,
like, there's
yeah,
definitely a commercial end of it on the other end of that. And as you say, $25 a month. I mean, okay, I know that the club is self-funded, but I mean, there's
yeah,
there's 30 members, so it's a euro
yeah,
each.
yeah,
I mean, in reality, to get your photograph somewhere that may never been seen, I think it's a phenomenal thing. And like I said, I mean, I thought it was quite interesting, um, not only to see it, but because I knew you and that you'd done it. So I really wanted to kind of go
yeah.
into the nitty gritty and how it was done. So fair play, because I've gone through it. It looks fantastic.
Sure,
And
thanks.
you are effectively walking through an exhibition, like I say, with perfect light on every photograph. It's
Yeah, yeah.
brilliant.
And we didn't have to hammer a nail into a wall or anything. So
Yeah, yeah,
handy out.
exactly. And you
Uh,
also don't have the problem as well. I mean, from a printing point of view, I mean,
sure.
I have a printer here and I rarely print because the amount of paper I waste, the amount of ink I waste trying to get the photograph printed. And also with my own printer here, I don't use it that often. So when I turn it back on again, it has to go through a whole cleaning cycle. And sure, that's dumping a ridiculous amount of ink again. So, like, to do an exhibition, there's the cost, there's the time,
Sure.
from the print point of view. So I mean, I think it's a golden opportunity to turn into the virtual world. It's kind of bringing an exhibition into the 21st century. twenty
Yeah.
first century, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so I was thinking there we're going back in time, because it feels like it's like Groundhog Day
And it's
every
like,
single
I
day.
know,
This
ground.
these days, yeah. But look, fair play to you on that, Terry. Thanks for giving us the information on it. Like I say,
No
I'll
worries.
put the link into the show notes on the Facebook group, of where people can go look at it. But it's free for people to look at as well. So, you know,
Yeah.
go have a look at the beauty, go look at the talent in the camera club, and you never know, you might find that photograph that you wished you could have visited yourself. Reach out, and I'm sure you'll be able to look after people as well if they
100%.
wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
brilliant.
Yeah.
So look, Terry, thanks for that. What we're going to do is we're going to take one last break, right? And it's a regular segment that I have in the podcast. So I have three questions that I'm going to ask you. One is a funny story, and I'll tell you the rest when we come back. So yeah, we'll be right back after
Good
this.
stuff.
If you're enjoying this episode of the podcast, why not jump over to iTunes or Spotify and listen to the back catalogue that we have with some great episodes where we talk about photography, gear, and some excellent guests along the way. Thanks very much for listening and for watching. We'll see you on the next one. And you're very welcome back to the final part of the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Terry, as I mentioned there before the break, I have three segments that I ask every single guest. And just because you're a friend of mine, I'm not letting you off, okay? So I'm going to bring you down across all three questions as well. So we'll start off, I gave you the hint in the first one anyway there, which is, a funny photography story. So, Terry MacSweeney, what's your funny photography story?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I mentioned to my wife about funny photography stories, and
Mm-hmm.
she says to me, Terry, do you remember the time she nearly got wiped out by a wave as I got her to walk into a photograph? We were down in Valencia down the cliffs in Valencia, and that's a very popular fishing spot, and you have
Hmm.
people fishing off the rocks, and it wasn't that crazy a day with regard to storms or waves, but there was some nice waves crashing in, and I had my 200 mm lens,
Hmm.
so I was trying to compress, the perspective, and I asked, oh, Rena, would you ever walk in there into the foreground so I can get a sense of scale? So she innocently walked in, and she had her phone, so I was talking to her on the mobile phone because she was quite a good bit away. And as she was there, I said, no, no, you need to move in a bit closer, a bit closer. And then all of a sudden, and I was on continuous shooting.
Okay.
So I was taking shots of the waves, and this humongous wave crashed over the cliff and soaked her. So I could see her kind of retreating quickly. Um, but she survived, and she's still talking to me. And but she hasn't stood in for a photograph since. So I'll have to coax her back again
I don't know
for
about
my
that. You
sense
have
of
to bring
scale.
bring her back to somewhere that's safer. But no, you hang on a second, because
Yeah.
you said something at the very beginning there in regards to your father, right? And and your mom carrying all the gear.
Oh
So
yeah.
like this is obviously where it came from, sending your wife
So,
out there now as well, like, and not giving a damn for her
yeah, I
safety,
know.
because all you
I
wanted to
know.
do was to get the shot, yeah.
Get the shot. I know. I thought about getting the shot.
And tell me, do you
Uh,
have the continuous frames? You can see that big giant wave coming in and the moment of
I can,
impact, yeah.
I can, yeah, yeah. And her kind of hitting reverse gear and getting the hell out of there as
Oh
quickly as
yeah.
possible.
Yeah, you know
Yeah,
what? It's funny. I love the sea. I love it. I love it. I love the sea.
yeah.
But you always have to be on your guard by the
Oh, you
sea.
do, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Always
yeah,
have to be on your guard by the sea. Like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Particularly when you're down
Like
in Valencia.
yeah, no, that is a dodgy spot, all right. Like, but I did try to convince her that the 200 mm lens, that compression made it look way worse than it was, and she she wasn't buying it at all. Like so, but
It does,
we're
yeah, it
still
does.
on good
It makes
terms.
it makes it look a lot worse than what it actually is. Yeah, but she still got soaked, like so. You
She
mean
did, yeah.
there's no half getting wet. You're either soaked or you're
No,
soaked. You know what I mean? So yeah,
yeah,
fair
yeah,
play to
yeah,
her.
yeah,
Fair play to her, and
yeah,
she still
yeah.
talks to you, which is good. Yeah.
She
Okay.
does, she does.
Survive to tell the tale. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And Terry, the next question is, what gear do you shoot with? So when I was taking photos with you, you were shooting Canon, and you had a 24 to 70, and it rarely came off your camera. So
Yeah.
are you still shooting Canon?
No, I actually made the big switch. Shock horror,
Oh my
and that
God!
that was
Don't say
that.
Nikon. Don't say Nikon. Please don't say Nikon. Please don't say
No,
Nikon.
no, no, no,
All right.
no,
Okay, that's
no.
grand. So
It's
go on
worse.
now. Go
It's
on.
worse.
Go on. Worse.
I'm a Fuji fanboy now.
Oh my God! You joined the tribe. You joined the tribe.
Join the
Go
tribe.
on. What
Sorry, apologies.
Fuji? What XT? What?
Next T3. So
Very nice.
and I'm delighted. Like I was kind of a bit at the start when I switched, and one of the big reasons I switched was I was kind of hiking up in the snow up into the Reeks to take a shot of the rising sun,
Hmm.
and I could feel my pulse coming out through my neck. It was the weight of my gear because I had the 70 to 200 f2.8 lens,
That's
absolutely
heavy. Yeah.
beautiful lens, but I reckon weighed a
Yeah.
couple of kilos. And I was trying to get shots of the reeks from the eastern reeks. You get beautiful photographs of Carrantoul from that side when the sun is coming up.
Yeah.
But I missed the sunrise because the gear was just too heavy for me. So I decided, that's enough, that's the last straw really. And I decided to sell all my gear, and I bought a Fuji. Um, but then I was surprised at how kind of all thumbs I was for a while because I was very fluent with the controls of the Canon,
Canon. Yeah.
and very, very,
Muscle memory
it
had
was,
been built up so
yeah,
much. Like yeah.
pretty much, yeah.
Proficient. Yeah.
So it was interesting, having to go back to, getting more, fluid with the camera again, and getting more, comfortable with the controls. But that was 2 years ago now, 2019, February 2019. And I'm loving the Fuji now. It's way lighter. I've two. I bought a second-hand XT3 a couple of months ago, and I'm hopefully buying there's a 70 to 300 it's just been announced,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
a light zoom lens that would fit my bag. So, because like one of the things that I found I was doing with the Canon gear was I was making a decision about leaving. Will I take it or won't I take it?
Mm-hmm.
when I was going out, and that was kind of, ringing an alarm bell for me that, if I'm thinking about leaving stuff behind, is there a problem there? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I kind of look at stuff when I'm, looking at gear and stuff like that, does this enable me to do what I want to do? And, what I want to do is, as you were saying earlier, or as we were saying earlier about the, hiking and getting
Mm-hmm.
out into unusual places, and having light gear enables me to do that.
Mm.
So that's one of the big reasons I went to Fuji. But, I just love the ergonomics of the cameras. You don't need to go into any menus to set any settings. They're all dials at the top of the camera, and the apertures on the lens. So it's like an old school retro camera
Mm-hmm.
in that way.
But in a digital form as well.
Yeah,
And
100%. Yeah.
but how do you find the image quality then and the sensor?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, yeah, no problems whatsoever.
And in low light and ISO?
Uh, yeah, I haven't done a huge amount of low light stuff, but the recovery of the shadows has been really good.
Very
Like
good.
I've recently, like I had a set of Lee filters as well, and I think you might have done the same thing with the
Yeah.
case magnetic circle filters. So I
Yeah.
got rid of all my Lee stuff. I still have a few for sale if anyone's looking
I still have
for.
all mine. I haven't sold them yet
Have you?
either.
Okay. I'll get in ahead of you. If anyone is looking for a circular polarizer, give me a shout. And a big stopper. They're the only two I've left. But I'm blown away by the ease of the case circular filters.
Yeah, it's great.
Amazing, and they're really small and compact, and they're light. And then it means there's less faffing
Yeah.
in the bag getting stuff.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that would enable me to, take the shots that I want to take. And with the Fuji, with the new cameras, any new camera, I suppose the dynamic range is so much that you mightn't actually need to have grad filters anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and you can bracket the shot anyway if you
Mm-hmm.
want to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Very
happy
good.
I made the switch. Yeah,
And what lenses have you got for the Fuji? So you're
I've
going to get the
the 70 to
70 to
300. Yeah,
300. So what
yeah.
are you shooting on at the moment?
The kit lens, which is I think 24 to 55, and I have a 10 to 24, and I have a 35 prime,
Wow, very
and
nice.
I think I got a 80 prime macro as well,
Very nice.
which is a beautiful lens. Like when I was taking the headshots of Neve, my daughter, there during the week, I used that, and whoa, I was blown away by the sharpness of the lens.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, fair play to you. I mean, look, I can see a lot of people that are moving over to the Fuji tribe, and you can see why from the weight point of view. Because look, I've changed and I've gone down the route of the mirrorless and I have the USR, and even coming off the 6D, it, it's a much different experience, but it's the same experience for me because, as you mentioned a second ago, the muscle memory you're building up from using Canon, it's so easy, it's so intuitive, but I'm sure, like, after you get rid of your, 14 thumbs or 26 thumbs that you might have felt like you had, let's just say, and all of a sudden it starts to click in because it is the manual dials. And that's something I like, because it brings me back to many, many years ago when I was a kid and having a film camera, not knowing what I was doing, but I had to do all this and everything else was there. So it's kind of retro style, but in a digital age. So yeah, fair play to you on the change.
Yeah, and I was surprised, like, thinking about the change. Like, it was a real anxious moment, when I have all this gear, this investment in gear, and I spent ages going on YouTube, reading reviews, and after a while I said, feck it, just do it.
Do it.
Now,
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
be dithering about it, you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, absolutely.
So,
No, fair play. I'll allow you move
yeah.
away from Canon as much as it breaks my heart to say, but no, I can see where you go from it in relation to it. And I suppose
Yeah.
the third and final question in that then sequence of questions is we have a regular segment here on the podcast, right? For anybody who doesn't know about it, it's called a VSP. It means a very solid product. It's basically a reason to explain why you might have gas. Okay, so from your point of view, what is your VSP? A product that you'd swear by, you won't leave home without.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few things from Peak Design.
Okay.
The guy, they do
I think I know
straps.
where this is going. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I know we can talk about straps in a second and unattended tripods, because I know
Yeah.
you had a lot. You had a shout out for me I'm in the
Did you?
podcast anyway. But it's I do have a Peak Design strap, and we can talk about my unattended tripod anxiety in a second.
Yeah,
But the VSP from them, I got a camera clip which you can put on the strap of your
on the strap of the
rucksack.
bag. Yeah.
And then you have an Arca Swiss plate then on your camera, and you can clip that into the clip, which means that the camera is, within a few seconds of use all the time. So if
Uh-huh.
you're like, sometimes I might bring my bike into the national park and cycle to a place rather than having to walk, but
Hmm.
I'd have the camera on the clip so that if something came up, I could just use it straight away.
Hmm.
So again, this kind of going back to things that might enable me to take photographs, and I found, the clip is a really simple device, but it
Hmm.
works really, really well, and
Hmm.
it helps me have the camera close to hand all the time.
Yeah, good product is something I've thought about myself as well. I would,
Yeah,
and I've thought about it since I've moved to the USR because I wouldn't have done it with the 6D. It'd just be too big and clunky to be sitting on
yeah,
front of me, But even
yeah,
USR is a small body camera, but of course, the ability to be able to, on single-handedly, release your
yeah,
camera and put it back on again and grab that shot. I very, very, very good VSP. But I
yeah.
thought that what you were going to say your VSP was a strap, because
Yeah.
like I did mention you a couple of times on the podcast because you do have, like, unattended tripod anxiety, and it is something that you looked at me and go, Darren, what are you doing? I go, Terry, I'm only 2 feet. Don't be 2 feet away from it. Don't leave it. No, 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 no. Don't leave your tripod alone. I'm like, it's all right, like, but then I look at you, and you had the strap around your neck attached to the camera, so effectively you're attached to the tripod. And then I kind of saying to myself, all right, he likes that strap a lot, so I thought it was going to be
Yeah, yeah.
a strap, but you've a Peak
I,
Design strap as well, though, don't you?
I do, yeah, yeah. That they're, yeah, they're really handy for, you can clip it in and clip it out easily and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you've ever had a tripod topple over on you, you know where that anxiety comes from.
I have
But
once, but it was my own stupidity. It was me knocking. Well, it wasn't. It was actually other people calling me that I got up, but I knocked over the tripod, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a horrible
But
feeling.
yeah, it is, yeah. But the Peak Design products, like, they're very well designed. Like, they're very simple, like, but they're very effective designs.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. No, very, very good choices. Very, very good choices. So, Terry, guess what? We're almost there, man. We're nearly done.
Oh,
Time is after flying already. I can't believe it.
it's flown. It's been really, really enjoyable,
Yeah. So
Darren.
listen, before I go, I suppose, where can people find more information about you, and where can people find more information about the club?
Yeah, so for me, like, I wouldn't be huge on it on social media, um, but because I spend most of my time in front of a computer all day, so I need
Yeah,
a
yeah.
break
A
sometimes.
break
But
from it, yeah.
Terry MacSweeney Photography on Instagram would be my main thing. So that's MacSweeney with the MAC. We
Hmm.
didn't take the soup, so it's MAC Sweeney Photography. And KillarneyCameraClub.ie. We have our own website, and
Very
also
good.
Killarney Camera Club on Facebook.
Very good.
So you will be able to find out, more information about the club on our website, and links to also the exhibition.
Perfect. So look, I'll put the links as well into the post on the Facebook group anyway as well. So yeah, and I suppose the final thing then, Terry, is with all this lockdown crap, when it's all
Yeah.
over, what's next for you?
Well, the just before lockdown, myself and Arena, bought a Volkswagen transporter that was partially
Mm,
converted as a camper van. So we
mm.
got it finished and certified the day of lockdown kicking in back in
Oh,
March.
wow.
So we haven't had a chance to go exploring much. Like, when it eased during the summer, we did a bit of exploring around Kerry and West Cork, which was just fantastic. And
Hmm.
we headed over to the Copper Coast as well
Very
for
nice.
a trip. So I'm really looking forward to, going around Ireland in the camper van. And my daughter Neve is over in Edinburgh, a university there. So a trip to the Highlands
Mm.
in Scotland is on the cards. And hopefully then, if the camper van kind of works out, and we're enjoying the camper van, we might kind of upgrade to a more, more long-term living in a camper van and head to the continent. So
Brilliant.
that would be the idea.
Yeah.
I bring the camera with me.
Wow. Jesus, that's living the
So
dream, Terry. By living the
that's, so
dream.
hopefully, yeah,
Yeah,
fingers
yeah.
crossed.
Hopefully, hopefully. Well,
Yeah,
look,
yeah,
Terry, I've thoroughly enjoyed catching up with you anyway, number one. But also, thanks very much for coming on. I think, you've given a fantastic insight, not only into your own photography, but also into the club and what goes into doing the whole virtual side of the exhibitions as well. So, yeah, look, hopefully someday soon, sooner rather than later, we'll get back out to go shooting again, because it's long
Sure.
overdue. Yeah.
Sure,
So,
absolutely, Darren. And
yeah.
thanks, Emil, for the invite as well. I really, really enjoyed my first podcast, so really,
Jeez,
really enjoyed
you
it.
did very,
And
very
thanks.
well. You survived, yeah. You survived me
No
anyway, which is
worries.
good, yeah. So look, Terry, from me in Cork to you down in Kerry, until the next time, slán go fóill.
Slán go fóill, indeed. Thanks, Darren. Take care.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week, and remember, keep shooting.